All right, hi. My name is Aaron, and there's not a lot of videos out there that help somebody change the transom on their boat. So I wanted to just give a quick tutorial and video on what I did to start replacing the transom on my old boat here. It's an 85 Starcraft. I'll turn this around. Uh, so you can see here, it's an older boat. We got a 75 Merc on the back. Um, anyway, so first thing I did is this motor weighs probably close to 300 pounds, 250, 300 pounds. So we've rigged up a chain hoist up top and then a secondary strap, and I'll explain what we were using that for. But first thing you want to do is you want to start taking out all of your bolts, um, your tow hook bolts, some transom bolts. This motor requires an extra piece of wood on the back, so you start taking all those bolts. There's also lots of wood screws that are underneath that hold the bottom of the transom down in there, and the top of the transom. So basically every bolt other than the top two bolts for your motor itself, you want to take out every bolt there is. Also, depending on your boat, you might where your drain plugs are. I've got a drain plug here and one on the other side. So you want to also knock them out. Sometimes they're flared in, so if they're the aluminum ones, so you really want to take those out as well. So once you get all your bolts out, if you go to your dealer, you should be able to find the proper hanger for your engine, and it screws into the top of the flywheel here, and it's got the eyelet on it. And if you match it with the proper size chain pull, you should be able to lift your engine up off quite easily. So we disconnected the steering column and throttles from the boat, from the engine, and just made note as to where they were positioned. In this case, we didn't have to disconnect any of the wiring because we were able to lift the boat off, and I don't really need to move the motor around too much, so we're able to leave our wiring all connected on there. So that's good. But the sides here, so depending on your boat, we did have to start drilling out some of the rivets. But on this one, this whole trim is all the rivets in here are underneath this black side bumper piece. So instead of doing that, we just made a small little slit right in here and took our folders and just folded this up to give us access. And we'll put that back down, and there's corner plates that go on here. You want to drill them out, drill out all your rivets to be able to take your corner plates off. And there's a piece of trim on here as well that you're going to want to pop out all the nails and rivets so that you can peel that top piece off. But again, you can't peel that top piece off till you get the motor off. So again, you get all your bolts out other than your two motor bolts. Then you get your engine hoist bolt in here, and if your Mercury dealer, it all depending on the size of your motor, these are all in different sizes so that it matches to what you have. I actually figured out what the thread was and looked online as to what it is, and asked a tool and die shop to make me up one of these pieces, and it was much cheaper than taking a risk of ordering the right one online, and also much cheaper than going to the actual dealership itself. So this is very crucial to lift your motor off safely. So once I had the motor tension kind of taken off, I undid the last 2 bolts at the top of the engine, and the engine lifted right off, no problem, and is being held there. So uh, we then were able to take off the top trim. I'll show you the top trim here. So here's the top trim that sits on top of the transom, and yeah, I took that part off, and then that gave us access to the wood transom. So once you have that off and you have access to the transom and you've made sure all your bolts are out and screws are out, you're on to trying to get the transom up and out of the boat. So, and it's actually a little more difficult than you think, mainly because the wood is so rotten. Typically you can actually see all the rotten wood on the floor here, because it just started to deteriorate on me as I was trying to pry it out. So, and I really wanted to try to save it in one piece so that I could use it as a template to make my new piece. Actually, so what we came up with, instead of trying to pry it out, is we screwed a piece of length of metal in here, a piece of unistrut, to the top of the transom, and that is what I have that you see up there, what I have the yellow strap for. So the yellow strap came down, and I had it hooked in here. Sorry, I had it hooked in here to over to the top of the transom, and I just ended up cranking it up, and it actually it actually started to lift the entire boat. The back of the boat, the transom wasn't coming out at all. So I had to get in the back of the boat and make sure that it was not going to go over on me or anything. I had a piece of I had a stand and a block underneath the boat so that it wasn't going to tip over on me, because like it was literally lifting up the back of the boat and wasn't doing anything. So I was the counterweight in the back of the boat and just slowly cranking it up, and finally it like gave way, and then the transom slowly started to come out with that second chain winch there that I was using, or sorry, rope winch. So yeah, and with that, it was just so nice and easy to pull it up and off. So again, that was to me, I would recommend doing that. I would recommend putting on a piece of metal if you can, to hopefully you can see that properly, to get that up and lifted out. So on this transom was three pieces. I guess that's how they did it back then. You'll see they have corner pieces here, and the corner pieces were literally just screwed into the to the main board pieces, and on both corners. And you can see the shape of this corner. Look at that. It's all rotten right out. So, and this piece of wood is like ridiculously heavy because it's waterlogged. It's so soaked. Look at that. Yeah. No wonder my motor was starting to come right off the back of the boat. So all the screws were coming out. It was pretty terrible. But yeah, thankfully it all came up in somewhat one piece. So I was able to use the bottom part and this half decent corner here as a template, and then I took it to the other side, obviously over here, and just flipped it over and used it as a template over here as well. And then I bought a piece length or a 4x8 sheet of 3/4. You can see here in the back of my truck. I bought a 4x8 sheet of 3/4 inch marine ply. It's a lot harder than your natural plywood. This is what it's meant to do: floorboards in a boat or transoms in a boat. So what you want to do is you want to measure the thickness of your existing transom, which I have on the old one an 1.5 inch, and you take you take your 3/4 inch and you double it up and you make 2 templates of your old transom, and then make them identical in shape and size, and you cut 2 of them out, and then you put them together, and that's how you get your 1.5 inch thickness. So I've already made my templates and cut out my new transom, so I'll show you that here now. So when you get it all cut, and you should have something that looks like, one second. Well, it looks like this. So again, you can see I did my corners all solid, one piece all the way down. My other corner there. So I got one nice solid piece, not the cut off corners like they used to. And the thickness is 2 pieces thick, so I got my 1.5 inch of thickness all the way around. What I did next is I put a screw I lined them up and I put a screw just temporarily in each end to hold it together, and then I just used a jigsaw to cut it, because obviously to get the rounded corners I wanted it nice and neat, and it's got to be pretty precise to fit in there properly. So then once you get them, obviously the 2 cuts are going to have their little differences when you put them together. So then you take a belt sander and you just go around it and smoothen it out and make sure that there's no one edge is rised up higher than the other edge between the 2 pieces that are put together. So yeah, now that I've done that, I'm on to my next step. And my next step will be to take these 2 pieces back apart from my new piece here. Take them back apart, put on a stain sealer, marine stain sealer on the inside of it, and then once let that dry, and then once that's dry, I will put them back together with some marine epoxy or like a PL premium kind of stuff. It's a good quality that you want to put in, and then you just paste it on your 2 pieces, in between your 2 pieces. Put your 2 pieces together and clamp them together, and put your screws back in. And then once you've got that all back together, then you take your sealer again, your stain sealer again, your water sealer, and then you do the entire thing, the whole outside of your new piece. Mainly want to concentrate on your cut edges, but obviously the entire piece gets the waterproof sealer put on it from there. So once your waterproof sealer is on, then we can place it back within the transom of the boat here, and make sure it fits all nice and snug. We might need to make some minor sanding adjustments with the sander, but then if we do have to make minor sanding adjustments, then you definitely have to go back over it with the water sealer. No matter what, your end finish, you want to be fully sealed with water, with the water stain sealer. So then you can see the track that's down in here. There's a little kind of trolley that your transom sits in, and it goes against this board here. You got a bunch of different brackets to screw back into your new transom, and then you're on to tapping your holes. So my recommendation is to set it down in, drill your holes, set it down in, drill to where you want it, and you're not going to want it to come back out. Drill your holes, then take your sealer again and put on a Q-tip, and then just put it in and around through your holes, so that you really make sure that all cut edges are sealed as best as possible. So I will make another video to show all these next steps, but I got going at it, and I kind of wanted to just take a second and you know, try to help the next person out that takes on a little project like this. And I'll make another video when I do get into the staining with the sealer and drilling the holes in the back in the new transom, so that you can see what goes on there next. But once you get those holes filled with the sealer, and you've let the sealer cure, then you start putting all your bolts back in, hoist up your engine, and slide your engine back on. Now, this engine being a 75 horse on this guy, it does require an extra piece of wood. You can see the difference here in color. So with this motor, it does require an extra piece of wood on the back, and it was just a 1/2 inch wood. You can see the bolts there. It was a 1/2 inch piece of wood that was on the back, right there. And here's its replacement. So I cut again out of the 3/4 marine ply. I just measured the shape of it, cut it out, and I'll be putting the nice side facing out and you use the same sealer, the same stain, waterproof sealer, and coating this board as well as best as possible. So obviously some of the bolts I'm going to be going with new because I didn't like the shape of them. I'm going to be using obviously all stainless steel stuff, so that you have less chance of watering. All your screws and bolts should be stainless. And once that back plate's put on and everything's put in, then we're into putting the motor back on. So we put the cap back on, and then we put the motor back on, the top cap, and then we'll bend these back down, put our silicone it all up really nicely, re-rivet the top couple spots here that we drilled out the rivets, and we have end caps that go on here. Show you those end caps. Yeah, so these end caps kind of sit in like in there, so we want to make sure we really seal around all these edges with a nice clear silicone. So yeah, again, there's just not a lot of videos out there with how to rebuild your transom. It's a little bit of work. You could probably do within, like, I don't know, 2-3 solid days. Maybe a little bit more, because you generally have to let your sealer dry. So you're probably into about 4 days worth of work, but it's not that difficult to do, to be honest. I didn't find it that difficult. The big thing was having the right chain pull and the right fitting for the top of the motor, so that you can safely take it off and leave it hanging there. And then coming up with the idea of instead of just like wrecking the wood and using a crowbar to try to pry it out, I was coming up with this extra rope pull here, all the way up, to be able to help pull that transom out. That was a huge help as well. So once that was out, everything else has been going pretty smooth so far. So I'm gonna get this all sealed up, get my new transom all all looking beauty. Pretty excited that we're at this next step, and I'll make another video of when it comes time for me to start putting it back in. But thank you very much, and I hope this helps the next person. Take care.